Today we're going to be talking about techniques and ideas that you can use for writing riffs and drop tunings and how to take full advantage of the benefits of drop tuning your guitar. These techniques and ideas will help with any drop tuning from drop D to drop C all the way to drop E, whatever you're trying to do. It's the same idea. And some of these techniques may even help if you're using them for standard tuned riffs as well. So make sure you stick around to the end. I guarantee at least a few of these tips are going to help you with your riff writing. For those of you who are unaware what a drop tuning is, it's the whole guitar would be in standard tuning, but your low E string is tuned down a whole step lower than it normally would be. So if you were in E standard regular guitar tuning, you would take your E string and tune it down to D. Right now I'm tuned to D standard and I've dropped the D down to C. So I'm playing in drop C tuning. First thing, and in my opinion, the most important for playing in drop tuning is to actually take advantage of the tuning you're playing in. There's no point in changing the tuning of your guitar away from standard if you're not actually playing riffs in a different way or using the tuning to your advantage. The main two advantages of playing in drop tuning are, number one, of course, you have that extra low string, so you can get those heavy chugs that you want. And second big advantage is that you can play power chords with one finger. So instead of a standard power chord where, say, we would have 3rd fret on the E, 5th fret on the A playing a power chord, you would just play 3rd fret on both of those. If you're playing an open power chord, all you have to do is hit 0 on both of those strings. You can even add the D string to the mix if you want, same fret. One big advantage of that in drop tuning is being able to play power chords that are farther apart without having to shift your chord around. With the power chord, you would have to move your hand all across the fretboard. In drop tuning, we can play with just one finger for each of those chords. I'd recommend taking advantage of that in your riff writing. Otherwise, your drop tuning is kind of going to waste. Second thing is, don't be afraid to play outside the box with your harmonies. A lot of times, drop tuned riffs like to do what I was just showing with your single finger power chords, but you can change those and experiment with different harmonic intervals. If we're in drop tuning, but you play a power chord like you normally would, that's a major 6 interval, which sounds quite different than a power chord. You can even add a minor 6 in there. So a regular power chord would sound like that. Sounds pretty good. Major 6 or a minor 6 gets a little spicy. And some of those intervals are easier to reach in drop tuning than they are with your standard tuning. You can experiment with mixing them up with your regular power chords to create something that sounds a little more interesting. Don't forget about dynamics and playing your riff in different ways. Sometimes we can get absorbed in always hammering the crap out of our guitar to give it that heavy sound, but changing things up even within the same riff can make your song sound a little more interesting. A great example of this is Damn That River by Alice in Chains, where they do one riff and then they do the exact same riff heavily palm muted. Totally changes the dynamic of that riff. Think of how you can implement that into your own songs. Oftentimes you can take one riff, change it up a little bit, and then you have a much larger part of your song that sounds more dynamic and can keep the listener engaged. A lot of times people want to keep it nice and heavy with their zeros and ones. Which can sound great. Keep in mind when you're doing something like that, it's pretty simple melodically, so I would definitely recommend trying to come up with a more interesting rhythmic pattern. If you're just chugging away with all 8th notes or 16th notes, it's gonna sound a little boring. Don't be afraid to expand the range of pitches that you're implementing in your riffs. You don't have to stay in these super low, djenty areas of your guitar. Another thing that I recommend doing is changing the endings for your riff. So the last little bit of your riff, one thing to do is either alternate it every other time that you're playing the riff or every 4th time that you play the riff. Another thing I like to do is draw inspiration from other riffs. And what you can do, especially if you're in a completely different tuning, take a riff that you know super well and take the rhythm and try to play the same rhythmic pattern as the riff that you really like, but with totally different melodic content. So, for example, if we take a song that I'm sure a lot of you have heard, Raining Blood by Slayer, goes like this. Take that rhythm, but change it up so it's something completely different. You can change power chords, add all kinds of different stuff to it. Just get that little idea in your head and convert it to something your own. So we can have that riff turned into something like this. Pretty much every great musician is drawing inspiration from the songs they like and the artists that came before them. One last super important thing, don't forget to record yourself while you're trying to write riffs. Just set your phone up, put a little camera on so you can record your hand playing. If you're not super experienced with ear training, you might forget how to play your riffs, so being able to look back at them again will help you pull those riffs back in your memory so you can play them. And when you're writing, even in the middle of the process, you may forget what you've written, and it's always important to have that so you don't lose out on potentially an incredible riff. Let me know in the comments below if you have used any of these techniques before in writing your own riffs, or if you plan on using these in the future to write some riffs. If you guys got any inspiration from this video, or if you learned any new techniques, or if you just enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like and a subscribe. I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Have a great one.